I'm Julia Whitney Barnes. I was born on the kitchen floor of a Victorian home in Newbury, Vermont. I spent 2 decades in Brooklyn before moving to the city of Poughkeepsie, where I live with my photographer husband and 2 young children. I went to Parsons School of Design for undergrad and Hunter for grad school. I've been on faculty at Marist College since 2016. My work is executed in a variety of media, from oil paintings, murals, drawings, collages, encaustics, and site-specific installations. My studio is on the third floor of our home. When I first moved to Poughkeepsie from Brooklyn, I focused my attention on making oil paintings of intimate interiors based on our own home and neighbors' houses. I also do a lot of site-specific works out of the studio, including wall paintings, site-specific floor sculptures, usually out of reclaimed bricks. I currently have on view in Brooklyn a public art installation entitled Illumination, an interpretation of Charles Booth's stained glass windows. The inspiration for Illumination sparked from experiencing the exquisite stained glass windows by artist Charles Booth, located at the Brooklyn Historical Society, which is just down the street from the Arts Brookfield location of One Pierpont Plaza. Charles Booth was a largely unknown artist of the Victorian era. I studied his work at several locations in Manhattan, including the Jefferson Market branch of the New York Public Library, Grace Church, Calvary Church, and Trinity Church. My deep interest in history brings attention to Booth's surviving works, while also imagining what some of his now lost windows may have actually once looked like. For Illumination, I took hundreds of photographs of Booth's windows from multiple angles and used them as a point of departure for creating my own digital versions using his varied themes in new and different ways, also adjusting his traditional palette. These new adapted interpretations have been printed on vinyl and adhere to the marble lobby walls of One Pierpont Plaza, creating an illusion of illuminated stained glass windows and providing a unique opportunity for viewers to see this kind of work at eye level. At the Brooklyn Historical Society, the work is hundreds of feet away. Making public art affords the opportunity to reach a new audience. The installation is in a lobby of a large building in Brooklyn Heights, most of which is occupied with doctors' offices. During the coronavirus shutdown, it's an interesting time to have people passing through while experiencing different types of emergencies. This installation was my first time working with a vinyl fabricator, and it's a really great solution for doing temporary projects. And it's also really exciting just to see the pace, so how immediate things can go up, and then on the reverse too, how immediate they can come down if needed. I decided to start small when creating oil paintings based on Charles Booth's work. I wanted something intimate in nature. I've been using oil paint for over 25 years, and it's still my primary medium that I always come back to for finding the most direct way of working. I increased the scale on some of the later oil paintings of this series and always do elaborate drawings underneath the layers of oil, which create the underlying structure, especially of the stained glass windows. I enjoyed the challenge of working in many different scales, from doing massive murals to tiny, intimate studio works with the smallest brushes in hand. My studio walls are filled edge to edge with finished oil paintings, sketches, cards collected from past travels, caustic works on panel, and a variety of drawings. My studio is separated into 3 different parts. The section that you're seeing right now is where I primarily make drawings, studies, collages, and I also do a lot of photo shoots for the botanical works that I work from. In collecting on the imagery of Charles Booth's windows, I knew I wanted to also make a series of oil paintings based on them. I like to play around a lot with real flowers paired with abstractions of flowers. Now, of course, none of them are real flowers. They're all paintings of a variety of media. The floor in this particular painting is based on my combination of a variety of Renaissance painting floors. I like to look at religious painting, but instead of thinking of the typical topic, I actually look to see more of like the genre painting of that era and how it incorporated the tiled floor from that particular region. The floor scene paired with Charles Booth's stained glass windows is a real floor I painted in a second floor sleeping porch of a Victorian building. I thought, what better way to pair something Victorian with something else Victorian? The vase here is an ancient vessel. I'm referencing Ikebana in the flower arrangement here, and also Charles Booth's use of Anglo-Japanese style that was popularized in the 1870s by Charles Dresser. The vases are often stand-in for people in the compositions, and I imbue each vessel with personification. In this painting, I featured the floor to the Brooklyn Historical Society, along with an Ikebana flower arrangement. I use both ancient to contemporary vessels. This one is by a former studio mate named Paula. The windows here were pulled from the New York Public Library location of the Jefferson Market. Originally, it was a courthouse for women, and I keep thinking when I'm seeing these windows that there was some female anatomy filled into these spaces. When I see different patterned floors, it transports me to those places. The window depicted in this painting really stands out to me for its palette. I saw it in a book at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and was determined to find where it was actually located. The window depicted here is hidden away at the Calvary Church. I searched through the whole space before finally getting the person who worked there to agree to bring me up to a second floor space. And hidden behind a giant cross, boxes, etc., I found 2 of these windows, one in pretty bad shape. For many years, I worked on a series that combined bats with orchids. And whenever I make paintings incorporating orchids, I always think back to that series. I have a background in ceramic sculpture and often look to contemporary ceramicists and sculptors when creating forms. The vessel in this one is by Elizabeth Clay. Another great ceramicist and longtime influence is the potter George Orr, who designed the vessel you're seeing now. I love the strangeness of it and how you're looking through it. Depicted in the vase are magnolia flowers, and our daughter is named Magnolia. Life is certainly not going on as usual during quarantine. but we've been making the most of it and just feeling incredibly lucky for our surroundings here in the city of Poughkeepsie. I converted a third of my studio into our daughter's homeschool area and her studio during the school's shutdown. We frequently make work together, and collage is a medium that we've come back to many times. The pace of it works really well, and just being able to cut different pieces at different times. When we made this collage together, I really thought, what can we do with this? I want to see this exist somewhere in the world. And then it did. An important part of the process was just really salvaging through all the materials that we already had laying around the house, and then drawing it out and just seeing how different it was at large scale. In some parts, I've really stuck to the original collage, and then other ones figured some artistic license as we went along. You can see the tiny planets also hanging down from the ceiling, and there's a whole constellation that comes into the composition. Magnolia helped paint as we went, and she really got into brainstorming with me on color choices, etc. And I couldn't leave those drawers unpainted. So when we were bringing rainbows through the space, we brought some more rainbows and joy to the room in that way. Henri Matisse was definitely an influence in this work, as is Frida Kahlo. I love how she said, "I paint flowers so they will not die." And in the quarantine, we just kept thinking, what can we do to sort of keep things alive in here? This project is the number one thing that I think I'll remember from quarantine. I also hope the number one thing that our children remember from quarantine, that they remember the special things that happened versus the things that didn't happen. When it was all finished, it was really satisfying just to hold up that original collage and look to see how it related to the entire room environment. This collage series is ongoing, and I'm also thinking about ways in which it could turn into future murals at other locations. I look around our environment, I pull from the natural worlds, I look at imagery of flowers, and also I take a lot of real specimens and bring them into the space. Sometimes I like the imagery to be really flat, and other times I'm bringing in a more modeled approach. You can see there's a lot of pink and green. Those two colors are really just gelling for me right now. The plants are based on both real plants, and sometimes you just start cutting and piecing things together and see how it works from there. The underneath layer in this particular one is done in watercolor, also layers of gouache. I use a bit of everything, even old house paint laying around. This is the largest collage I've done in this series so far, and it incorporates a few dozen pieces of paper. And a lot of different mediums throughout the process. I had it sitting around my studio and just kept adding more and more and more. I also was thinking about where I wanted the plants to touch and where they didn't touch. And the more touching, it just kept thinking to me about how people can't touch right now, but at least the plants can. I've been collecting bricks for over a decade, specifically stamped bricks from the Hudson River region. People often ask me, where do you get all those bricks? And the short answer is everywhere. So this was from a building that collapsed in a fire. But really I find them along the shore where the brickyards used to be. I also do a lot of swaps for them and meet a lot of interesting people. I document taking a photograph of each person that gives me bricks. The largest installation I've done so far in an interior setting was at the Poughkeepsie Trolley Barn on Main Street. This is a 14,000 square foot space, and the river spanned about 150 feet here. I make it in the form of the Hudson River, and incorporate only Hudson River brick. One brick from each brickyard is glazed in a watery bluish green and also labeled with underglaze on the side, the name of the brickyard and the location where it once existed. It is then put in that spot along the river. Of the 400 brickyards that once existed along the Hudson River, none remain today. This image shows the installation in an exterior setting at Wilderstein. I really love how even over just a few short months, you can see that nature starts to take back over and the plants are all engulfing the bricks. My goal for this project is to eventually collect a sample from all 400 plus brickyards that once stood, and then turn it into a permanent piece of public art somewhere in a brick-rich area along the Hudson River. Thanks for the remote studio visit. It was good to welcome people into this space, even if via video. To learn more about my work, you can definitely visit my website at juliawhitneybarnes.com. To see a lot more candid things, that's usually where I post is Instagram, and you can see both in stories and in posts.